Why don't I call the meeting to order? I'd like to call the meeting to order. Okay, minutes from both our last meeting in January and the field trip.
Fine.
I'll take that as a motion to accept.
Yeah, motion to accept.
Second,
Second.
any substantial changes or discussion? Anyone opposed? Okay,
Was that motion for both of them?
yeah, I would think so,
Sure.
yeah.
The second one, there's not much on anyway.
Yeah,
No, but
Yeah.
it was, there were
Yeah,
enough people.
for
there.
both.
Yeah.
Four.
yeah. Okay. See, I don't see any public. And
I would like to make a suggestion that we move item number 9, the dates for future meetings, to the first item on the
Yeah.
agenda, so we can discuss it while we are still awake. Unlike the last time.
Yeah.
yeah, now let's look, give us a chance to stall for Jay.
Fine.
Anybody opposed
Jay's
to
down at
moving it up?
5.2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
9.1 first.
We had some discussion about moving from the third Tuesday to some other Tuesday because of the week can get pretty hectic for a lot of people. And
The third week of every other month features me at Planning and Zoning, followed by Pnrc, followed by Conservation Commission, followed by Agriculture Committee.
I see Miranda nodding.
And Miranda
Well,
has
we
to-
just joined the camera club and their meeting is tonight.
Oh, you missed it, yeah. So, got another reason to change the day.
I find that I'm on the water advisory committee and conflict with this.
Okay.
Does it have to be a
Let's-
Tuesday?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no.
That was-
The only days of the week, so as your staff, the only days of the week when I can't do is I can't do Mondays 1 and 3, because that's inland wetlands and planning and zoning. Conservation Commission is the third Wednesday, and Agriculture Committee is the third Thursday. Those are my conflicts. Outside of that, I can do basically any time you can make.
What about Monday's week 2?
2, yeah, that sounds good.
Doesn't work for me.
Okay, so, and now we begin the attempting to schedule.
Yes.
All right.
I would prefer Tuesdays or Mondays.
About Tuesday 2.
No problem.
Fine with
Tuesday.
me. Any Tuesday's the same, really. Except for this.
Except that.
My parents' dog is also still here.
Oh, dog, nice.
Oh.
Excellent. Juliana, does second Tuesday work for you?
Tuesday,
Yes.
2?
Okay,
All right,
let's. do
Okay.
it.
Whoa.
same bat time.
Okay, so
On
we
the same
probably
day?
should have a formal motion to send to the town clerk.
That's true.
I move that we change our dates to Tuesday, the second Tuesday of each month,
Of every other month.
every other month, alternating months.
Second,
I second.
anybody opposed? Okay.
Okay, I'll draft up
Yay.
that schedule and send it to the clerk. Done.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got one.
Thank you.
A little bit easier. It still gets in before Conservation Commission with that trouble.
Okay, now we can just start down the, discussion of the Mansfield Open Space Report. I'll let Vicky start.
I presented a draft at the last meeting, got some comments back, and Michael sent out the latest version. So if there are any recommendations that anyone has to make
Yeah,
about
I
the
have,
report
I have a
itself.
few. I don't need to bring them up in the meeting, but I
Okay.
can be offline with you.
Yeah, we can do it. Okay.
The one thing I really think we should do is, and this is an example of it. Some of the bigger entities that we have are stitched together on a large process.
Mhm.
And I think a map more detailed than the town map that's from the Parks and Rec brochure
Mhm.
would help explain the history of how some of these things worked out, that you
Okay, what else Vicky has done is there's a folder on each one of the properties in the town clerk's vault archives that gives, and Vicky has put a summary, because some of those folders are pretty thick, you know.
Some of them are like that.
Yeah, you know,
Anyway.
a summary, and then she has a couple of examples, a
Right,
couple of the
I
maps. that we
brought
put
an
together.
example. This is the Sawmill Brook Preserve. And so this is what the summary looks like. And there's sort of an overview. And then for each acquisition, there's a parcel number. And that relates to the number on the map. So you know where it is on the map. And that way, the documents that are together in these files, like Sawmill Brook is like this, you have some sense of an overview. And so if you're looking at this file, you're not just like, oh, you know, there are like 3 or 4 folders here. Where do I start? So this is like an overview that for each of the properties.
And you just said that gets in the file
Yeah,
of the entire file.
yeah, yeah.
Summary.
You know, but it can be could be elsewhere too.
Yeah, I mean, it could be someplace else. But
So one of the things that I was thinking about of where else this could live, at least electronically, I think that a really useful format for kind of presenting this information would be through a story map. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those. We keep up,
you're talking about this information?
yes, actually. So what I can do is I can, you know, in a more detailed way than just the publicly available parks map or the GIS layer, I can create a curated board that shows not only all of our preserved open space pieces. I can link each, both I can present them chronologically and as an overall that you can zoom in on. You see it, you select it as a parcel. And then from there, you can both choose to view the history of the acquisition as well as an overview, such that it's kind of dynamic to see that. Vicky's done most of the legwork in terms of getting the information together, which means all I really have to do is digitize what isn't, and then get it together on Esri. And I've been kind of on a mapping kick lately. I've been doing a lot of mapping as we start prepping for the POCD. So I can see what I can do with that. If that's something interesting, try to get that information in a presentable form and get it on the website.
Sounds good. So what elements would be here? Sort of an overview of, let's talk about Sawmill Brook Preserve. It's sitting right here in front of us. So there would be some description of the park as a recreation resource, like hiking trails, that sort of thing.
Right, so we already have one of those
that's-
maps,
Right, and
Yeah.
you have a brochure
and we have a
with
brochure.
points of interest.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have some kind of overview comment. We have the brochure. Then we have maybe a history with a map, with a parcel map. Okay,
On that map, if possible, if we could, we probably should create a downloadable georeference that people can take into Avenger Maps or whatever software they like. And actually have in their trail. We could even, at some point, combine in some of the nature trail guides,
Yeah.
you know,
This is
in
the
that.
map I wanted you to
you know, with a
include.
piece of building in
Oh.
sections.
okay.
Yeah.
Would this be in addition to having just this document available anywhere
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
I mean,
this-
I like having the whole thing that I can just scroll through. Maps are a lot of fun, but ultimately I like to be able to have something that's one document too.
Absolutely. I mean, for me in my office, this map would just be much. I find that when someone walks into my office and asks a question, I hand them an 80-page document, their eyes glaze over a little bit. So it does assist, at least in the public outreach, until they're really committed to it, of being able to just, you know, pop the item up.
Yeah.
I know you know that, you're in education, I don't mean to
My
explain.
students read everything that I give them. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not sure about that one.
I took your class back in the day, I definitely read every single piece of paper you gave me.
That was the unusual.
Yeah, definitely,
One of the things that a story map should be able to do, and the planning and zoning map of the projects is an example, is it provides a way that you can zero in on the details of a particular thing. And it's almost like an indexing system that is user-friendly.
I love the idea of it. I'm all for doing the story map and everything. I just also like the document.
yeah, I think this should definitely be publicly available.
Right, so let's just go back to the point that Charlotte was making. She said she wanted a map.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, she wants like a general reference map to all of the parks, like is currently included. So when she saw this, she said, this is the map I was talking about.
Yeah, the discussion of that was very confusing and I walked in that area and it's like you see all these old land boundaries and you're just curious about
Right.
them.
Okay, so one thing that could be done is some of these maps could be included in the report. Makes it even more pages, even more daunting.
Well, Schoolhouse Brook,
It's an
in this
appendix.
area, I
But
have
some
really,
of them, like the larger ones, like
Yeah.
Schoolhouse Brook.
Well,
are-
especially the
that was
ones where
nice.
you talk about
Yeah,
building it over a course of time,
yeah.
like Schoolhouse Brook
Maybe
and
some-
Coney Rock,
Yeah.
as examples of how things fell together.
Yeah,
right,
they weren't all one piece.
right.
And that would, I think, a map showing the individual parcels for those would help help with understanding and following the story.
Great,
Yeah.
okay, and fortunately, Jim made these beautiful maps, so.
Work with that.
We are on a roll. Okay, so let's now get back to this report. Are you thinking of putting the report on the website?
So I can have copies available if people request them. It's really whatever you as a committee want to do. I like to just make information publicly available, where possible. Because if people really want it and I don't, they will FOIA me anyway, and then I will give it to them, so I might as well give it to them up front. I may add a small description of what they're about to open on the page, but you know, I think that it makes sense to just give the history. It's a great resource and.
Well, if you're gonna have a story map, this can be like the report can be like the preface.
It's
Or
the,
attached?
right, and I would attach it with all the various
Okay.
embedded documents.
Okay, so we could attach it to the story map.
Mhm.
That's fine. I do know that there will be a copy at the Historical Society
That's great.
and also in the town clerk's office. So, and I don't know if there need to be copies elsewhere, I mean, physical copies.
Yeah. If they're openable from the town website, I don't conceive much need to pre-print them. That's just paper to keep track of.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
What about the
If
library?
someone,
Well, I don't know.
The library has some other town
The
reference.
library
can-
should have it.
What do
Example,
we actually have down there?
the library
It's
has
just for neck of
the
the woods.
POCDs and that kind of stuff.
We can ask them
yeah,
if they want. I mean, it's up to them whether they want it.
because most of, I've never used it in in the town library, but the quote vertical file where they collect clippings and all kinds of stuff.
It's a good resource.
Yeah.
Okay, so next step, put some maps in the report and update it. And then it's going to you, Michael, and it's going to be
Oh.
attached to this story map. and,
Once you're happy with it, I will start by uploading it to the website on the primary page for the PNRC. Noticing, you know, curious about the history of the town, please read our new comprehensive report. I'll put in big, beautiful banner letters up top. And I'll work on getting our story map for all of our open space pieces up and running. Should be doable.
And where would that be?
So that we currently have a story map of all of our park trails that is accessible off of the Parks and Rec website, which I will probably use as my base for this. I will duplicate it and then pull it over to the same PNRC page in order to have access to it. And then I'll see if I can get it featured in our e-newsletter once we're done that we send out quarterly. I don't know when Margaret sends it out, but I will see if I can get it into the one after I am done with it. Because I think that's an exciting.
Mhm. Okay, so the story map is going to reside in the Parks and Rec section.
I would prefer to have the story map reside in the Parks and Natural Resources section, because we have an existing story map that you can go and see the individual parks. But I think for the depth of
Parks and Rec.
history on this should live with you.
Okay,
And I think another thing that story map could incorporate is the individual management plans.
Yes, those are another thing to talk about today. Management.
Shall we move 5.2 up the Park and Rec master plan on this? Unless you really want to sit and listen to us all night.
I don't mind.
Don't commit yourself.
I don't mind. So I would say continue in the line that you go, but thank you for that, unless you're there now. I don't.
No, no.
You're at,
We've got open space management plans,
oh, right, okay.
and we were gonna look at the Wetton Woods one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I put the open space management plans on here, because the many parks that the town have different open space management plan styles. Some of them are very comprehensive, like the one that I attached here, the Wetlands Woods Management Plan is recent, done in 2017. It's a comprehensive 42-page document that describes everything that there is to describe about the parcel. Some of our management plans are what I'll refer to generously as slightly less up to date. And so what I would like to do is I would like to bring all of our management plans to a baseline. The other thing that I think would be very good to do for these management plans is to make them interoperable with the Joshua's Trust management plans. So particularly on those parcels that are adjacent to Joshua's Trust. Joshua's Trust has a standard template for their management plans for everything. I would like, where possible, to at least make our management plans contain all the same information that they do and to the same standard, but at least have them hit the same outline information such that we can, where they are, look back and forth and make them align, such that particularly on the parcels where we have adjacent properties, Wetton Woods, not 50-foot Cliff,
Coney Rock.
Coney Rock, we can make these line up and make sure that we are doing the same things. I'm trying very hard right now to build that relationship with some of the new folks at Joshua's Trust to kind of promote our collective management of those parcels. And I think it'll just be easier and we can make a really strong relationship moving forward if our management plans are mostly aligned on these pieces. So I guess the reason I asked to put this on the agenda was we can go through the Wetton Woods management plan. It is a lot of pages. But I suppose my question would be to you all, what depth of detail is sufficient for the management plans in your view? If I'm going to try to update these all, when it comes to our management strategies, for example, I'm just going to share the screen here, if I can. So we have our whole history of intent and acquisition, which will be much aided by the work that Vicky's done. But in terms of our goals for these preserves, much of this is couched in the plan of conservation and development of what the plans should be and notes certain goals that have been achieved by permanent protection. But it doesn't necessarily provide a what I guess would call ambitious, not necessarily an ambition for the goal. It catalogs what are our general purposes, right? The goals for the preserve accomplishes these goals from these things. These things have already been accomplished by permanently protecting it. But the management plan doesn't go into depth of, we think we should have trails in this particular section. We think that we want to move beyond, you know, conducting our monitoring reports. A lot of this doesn't go down to maps of specific projects. Do we want to try to propose projects in these plans, or do we want to leave them before that step?
What, before you came,
Yes,
and before COVID, interrupted by COVID, actually, we were embarked upon trying to figure out exactly what you're trying to do.
great, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a lot of that stuff, I think, online. I can try to dig it up and send
Yeah.
it to you.
Great.
But I think the thought we had was because the management plans get approved by the town council,
Mhm.
the idea was to keep them fuzzy and work the details of implementation at committee level rather than council level.
And the other thing is a lot of stuff could probably be covered, like, you know, flora and fauna, inventories and stuff could probably be better covered by appendixes that can be added and subtracted without saying, hey, town council, would you please approve this new version?
Right.
The
We have
management
better,
plan-
we have better things for the town council to do than, you know, track our paperwork.
I am there.
So that's why this plan is the way it is.
Well,
Uh,
it is, and it isn't
Yep.
the reason why it's the way it is. This was a plan that was contracted out to the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
Right,
And that is why it is like
comprehensive.
the cream,
Incredibly-
cream of management plans. We
You've got
only
a
have-
bill, you need a page count.
you know, I mean, they really went at it, and there are a couple of others that they did also. The rest of them are ones that were homegrown and clearly did not live up to this standard.
Yep.
So when we started talking about this in, I think 2018 was when we started tackling this, we realized that there were a lot of similar goals for many of the properties. You know, most of them are forested, we're managing the forest, whatever, we're managing trails. So we were going to come up basically with a template for general goals. And then go into goals that were specific for that property. And that was as far as we got.
Yeah.
And we also thought we needed to very carefully tie it to the P O C D
Mhm.
and the goals in that and Mansfield, whatever the report is. So that anything we propose that might have a budgetary impact would have a clear, in the plan, justification for what we're meeting. So you see that? We're just doing that now.
It came across in the town clerk's vault this afternoon, the blank that was put together for a skeleton from, I think it was 1997. You know, for the plans. And of course, this was back when you took a pencil and filled in the blanks on a piece of paper, you know,
Yeah, because basically it was the committee people that were doing them all.
yeah.
Right,
I mean, there wasn't any paid staff or anything working on it. It was,
Yeah.
you take this one and you take that one.
And I think the thing is by having the general goals here, the thought is that you would also need to have for each parcel a checklist of, well, you're gonna go out and look. What are you gonna look for? Where do you look for the sedimentation that shouldn't be there anymore?
right.
If that's a factor in that particular plan. And so the other idea was that we would develop a kind of a master checklist that meshed with the template description of what we're trying to keep an eye on.
Right.
And
Yeah, and I'm thinking of, Ken got me thinking about that and thinking that those should be in a format that can be meshed together to produce a list of things for like the mowing list for Public Works. This year, these are the parcels that half the field needs mowing.
I like the idea of looking at Joshua Trust's plan,
Mhm.
see what we can do. For example, we're clearly going to continue to tie things to our P O C D.
Right.
That is something the trust would not be doing.
Right.
So I think it would be good to find out what they're doing, see what we can do to mesh. And what other things we need to do that would not mesh.
So their general plan by which they put everything through, I'll just pass this around because they have a template that they use for
Mhm.
every one of these that's universal.
Mhm.
And it kind of lists out it's a whole bunch of different types of protection goals, and they checkbox the ones that are pertinent for the property and
Mhm.
provide additional information. I think it is less intense than the kind of
We're not
gold
gonna-
standard
we're not gonna
plan.
do another.
Well, you don't want to do 23 of these?
No.
And the other thing is.
But it does nothing in many words. No, there is relevant information in there. There's a lot of background. Though I think much of the history is now captured in the open space report.
I think you're right there. A lot of what's in here as the fundamentals of why we have this parcel. Usually it's in the grant application
Mhm.
and it's stuff that
And-
Vicky has been tying together and will be in your storybook anyway. So your plan template can be much less robust for these things that don't change over time.
Mhm.
And maybe refer out to the story map.
Right.
For past
Yeah.
history.
That.
Or to the summary that's in the town clerk's office for the history of the acquisition. So it's in one place, but gets referred to from
Yeah.
appropriate places.
I thought Ken had a point about talking about if you're gonna monitor, where are you gonna monitor, what are you gonna monitor, and also who are you gonna tell? That should be clear.
Yeah, and they talk about a lot of that in here, but monitor the streams. Who? Nobody identified,
Yeah,
ongoing.
right.
But all of these things require resources, and that's kind of the sticking point is. We didn't want to create management plans that encumbered town resources that the town council then had to approve.
It's understandable. I'm currently trying to approve the bike pedestrian master plan, and I'll be at council for hopeful final approval of that this coming Monday. And there's been a great deal of what do we commit ourselves to versus what we do not. What is aspirational versus what is a recommendation of we need to hire additional staff. So I very much get that concern. But when you speak about monitoring, we are having the exact same conversation tomorrow night at Conservation Commission concerning all of our easements, because we are also, I'll use the words moderately behind on monitoring our easements. So the question becomes what we can do remote. Tomorrow, we're gonna use all of our aerial imagery to try to see what can we detect based on what we have. What can we actually see? And one of the ones that I'm most interested in is we did an easement monitor where we found a couple things wrong on Monticello. We walked that parcel for the parks to create that connection. I'm interested to see, can we detect any of the things that we saw when we were on the ground using our aerials? Would it be effective, right? So we're gonna try that out at committee tomorrow. Juliana has a comment, Mr. Chair.
So a report, I'm sorry, so a plan to me should have actions associated with it. And I'm wondering if something like this is better termed a report with all this, really great information about the site in it. And then I think it was Vicky was saying, there's this list of actions that pertain to multiple sites, which, says Excel spreadsheet, and have this list. It's like a master action plan for the sites where all these different actions, are on one axis and all the preserves are on the other, and it sort of gets filled in, here's what invasives are needed at every single site, invasive control or whatever it might be. And I'm wondering if that's one way to put it all together.
Well, and to a certain extent, the last part of this management plan before the appendices is a tabular attempt to do that.
For this site, right?
I mean, for Witten.
For Wetton,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
But what we were working on when COVID hit was trying to get okay, what are all the possible actions we could drive based on what we know about parcels and what the POCD says are goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were trying to get that pick list, so to speak.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing that so it's already there.
Or in the process of getting there. If we want, for our May meeting, I can send all of the existing plans to everyone, because I know we love death by spreadsheet. And we can think about every conceivable action that we have already, what we may be missing. I will probably make a master spreadsheet. I think there should be one, but I don't know if there is one. So I will find out if one ever existed, and if it didn't, I'll make one of existing actions versus parks, and then we can have a list to see how much needs to be done and be intimidated by that.
When there were a lot fewer parks, I know there was one.
Well,
Because
and-
we used to look at it, lay it out and look at
And what I
was
will do
where.
is I will send you that draft of what we were working on when
Please.
we stopped meeting.
Yeah.
Pesky pandemics
Yes.
getting in the way.
And also, I think it would help if you would send us the Joshua Trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we can sort of.
Yep. So I will send you, because I have that in a PDF form, so I will send that to you. I will send you plans. I'll put them in a zip file, so it's one document. It's not even intimidating on the email. Okay. Next meeting, we can come with ideas of what we need to modify and go from there. This is fun. This is the fun part of my job. It's not permitting, I get to think about natural resources and how to properly manage them.
We'll try to keep it that way.
yeah. Anything else on management plans? Now, just enjoy the master plan.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have Michael drive a little bit. I just say hello to everybody, and if folks that don't know me, Jay O'Keefe, Director of Park and Rec. Been in town, be 30 years this April, in different capacities, so resident of town and excited about the master planning process. Taking a little bit longer than we thought to work through some things with a consultant, but we are getting close to, last time I touched base with our consultants, we're doing I know you're probably aware, is we're doing concurrently our draft of our master plan for parks and recreation, but also a financial sustainability plan. So that financial piece that's combined with the master plan is sort of just stretched out this over a year-long project now. That said, I know that Michael has an example of one that is a draft. It's not ready for complete release yet, but they did send us a draft of some of their audit sites in regards to, primarily this is the ADA focus. So there are other focuses that are happening now. We haven't gotten any information back yet in terms of recommendations or things from the consultant on just plans for maintaining parks, which we know has to happen. Number one, just maintain what we have. And then any development that might be recommending throughout the parks. And I know there'll be recommendations in there too for management plans. So that said, I think our focus right now tonight is on looking at one of the audits so that people have an understanding of kind of how they went about that. But I'll let Michael drive a little bit, and then I'll be happy to, answer with him or clarify with him what's happening out there.
Can I ask a question? How does this ADA site report fit into the bigger picture of the master plan? I mean, is this simply going to be an attachment? Is this?
It's a major section, I would call it.
Okay.
It's a major section of the overall plan.
Okay.
So we have, I might be leaving something out, but we have the financial piece, we have the program parks, recreation programming.
Mhm.
We have facilities, and then we have, our parks, which may have facilities on them, or they may be, trails and open space, depending on what park we're looking at. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but
Yes, and is there also ADA consideration for the facilities as well as the? park?
yes. Yeah, so when they looked at things, one of the Bicentennial Pond would be a good example that down there, they looked at both, trails, our playground amenities, the pavilions, the picnic, areas, the universal access trail, and then our bath, that bathroom changing area that's been there for a little while.
I can't see how that universal access trail will ever meet this spec.
Yeah.
The universal access trail is more universal than what may have been there before, but if you went through the recommendations, you'll know that there's, I would say, between 5 and 10 big recommendations that we hear over and over again in order to ensure ADA accessibility. Some of which is very hard to meet because it pertains to slope along the pathways. But some of which is very much doable. The reason we wanted to just talk to you about this beforehand is, as we all know, it is maintenance is really the most important thing you can do with any resource you have, and it's also the least sexy resource, and least sexy thing to do. You don't get to ribbon cut when you maintain a trail well, and so as a result, there is maintenance that needs to be done at every one of the parks. Merrill Meadow, I wanted to talk about in particular with ADA accessibility, because it is a park that is in many ways so accessible to the members of the community who don't have as much mobility. And there are some concerns. The first of which, of course, is our accessible parking is not actually accessible insofar as it's not wide enough. So we'll have to figure out how to reconfigure the parking lot to make sure people can actually get in and out.
And just one thing before we kind of roll through this, is the W2 group is the consulting group that came out. They're considered good for Mansfield. They're considered one of the best in what they do. So they're out of Chicago. Not that Chicago makes them any better than being out of New York, or Boston, but they go everywhere. And they're considered one of the high groups that does this kind of work. I mention that because the more you'll hear that WT group as over the next several years as we work towards, we'll keep referring back to WT group said, but they identify basically 5 phases. A phase 1 that's been flagged on phase 1, and I think Michael and I will try to point those out to you as we go through, but they consider those things to be should be completed immediately. The category includes findings that may have little or no cost, so sort of the low-hanging fruit kind of things, but they were in violation of codes at the time of construction, or potentially pose an intimate safety concern. In phase 2 projects should be completed as soon as possible, includes findings that would remove barriers up to the greatest number of people. Finding new technical standards that would lend themselves to more inclusive use of facilities. Phase 3 should be completed as soon as possible, but there may be other items that will provide greater access. Then they move into 4 and 5, which are not necessarily need to be completed, but that's where you kind of get into it would be good to have, or smart practice kind of things. So what will happen in this report, we've been told, is we will have all the parks in addition to this very comprehensive detail, but we will have a by park, this is these issues are phase one, these are issues phase two, always, all the way through.
I read this report
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't identify which of the findings fit into which phase.
Yeah, I didn't.
So I
Yeah.
couldn't
Just so
tell
they're
whether
gonna tell us.
we were way off base or whether we're pretty good considering.
My read of this current report is that the breakdown of specific action items across the parks is gonna come as, when we recommend do this, this is in phase one, right? What gap fixing is phase one because it's immediate and it's really bad and
Yeah.
it needs to be determined versus in general, all of these fall into phase three. You should do them in order to become compliant. My understanding of what we've heard so far is it will be given to us as a package of
Okay.
recommend action across the scope. The financial costs for this are not quite finished being tallied yet. But I know that there's a lot of work to be done across the 5 phases. So some of the stuff we know about includes fixing the parking stall width. But there are certain things that I find particularly interesting to discuss with this body, which is things about making our trails more resistant to frost heave, while at the same point being able to keep them as accessible as possible. And yeah, natural. We don't want to necessarily pave everything, right? Paving's bad at
Right,
resisting
yeah.
frost. But it's also not accessible if it's, you know, rocks and gravel and roots and pathway. Jim brought something to my office, I believe it was you who dropped it
Yeah.
on my office counter, of stabilized stone pathways, which are a more flat surface, which is flat across it, but which are resistant to frost heave.
Yeah.
We're anticipating, in order to try to do the smart in seeking to minimize future maintenance, as opposed to just repaving constantly, is to find more innovative ways and new
Yeah.
technologies to reduce our burden. So if anyone has unique and innovative things we've heard about, because we're all
What happened
Said
on that, I was at the Connecticut Groundkeepers Association annual meeting to get the CEUs for my turf and ornamental license, pesticide license. And one of the salesmen was pitching stabilized stone dust, which is stone dust with a binder. So it resists some of the problems with stone dust. All I know about is what the salesman told me. Therefore, I am, I thought I shared it with Michael because it's something we probably want to investigate and, talk to somebody else who's actually tried to use it,
Yeah, I haven't found anyone yet who has tried to use it. I'm very interested to see if it works. I'm always, it's always good to be skeptical of new technologies, but sometimes they do actually solve our problems.
One of the source, I have a question fundamentally
Mhm.
is this, to what standard are they comparing this? The standard of an urban city or
Yeah.
what the National Park Service has determined is satisfactory?
well, my understanding with the universal, I guess, it depends on, I think my answer a little bit is, I don't know for sure. But it also depends a little bit on each park, like my understanding of the universal access path at Boston Pond area was that was built to national park standards, I believe.
That's my recollection
But
too.
when I walk, because I walked many of these sites with the group, and I spoke to the person that was coordinating, and they said, we don't look at it like that. Now, I don't know, I haven't gotten the final report where it says it's compliant, not compliant, or whatever. So I guess my answer, I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
But they do look at both national and state standards.
But
And
I guess
then-
the whole thing is, this is not a city, this is a park.
yeah.
It's a
It's a
preserve,
natural area.
right? It's
Right.
a
It's not a city park.
And so I,
Yeah.
It is a country park.
so what I'm seeing in this early draft, because we do have, and I apologize, Michael had a sample and I gave him, here's some samples in the file, but I had forgotten they gave us a preliminary list of potential costs by park and what those things are, and they also categorize them phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I can provide that and we get that out to you guys. But I mention that because a lot of the trail stuff I'm seeing, initially, when I saw the price tags, I'm like, oh my God, we're talking
Yeah.
crazy millions of dollars, but a lot of the trail stuff, well, I shouldn't say that, at least the ones I've looked at closely, are recommendations, not must-dos on some. For example, they had a lot, Merrill Meadow has a lot of cracking, right?
Yeah.
And if the cracks exceed a half inch, I believe is the
Yeah.
requirement.
Yep.
But at least if I'm interpreting their sheet here, that's in a phase 4 or 5, like this would be great to do. But we understand they're not gonna go around preventing every half inch crack that's gonna happen in New England. So,
Can you imagine?
Well,
so I guess I don't want us to get overly concerned. I think the town is, obviously, we want to do the best we can, but there are financial limitations and realities of environmental conditions and, you know, what can we practically do?
I filmed the bed, some of our fairly recent, multi-use paths probably don't meet their spec.
Yeah, and the other thing I was looking at, they cite like in Ansky 2017, even the 2015 they're citing. That Merrill Meadow, the stuff was put in,
1994.
yes. So they're citing standards Ansky's that weren't in existence when.
And Mother Nature has done some
Yes.
very nasty things to
Yeah.
Merrill
Yeah.
Meadow.
Like a
Yeah.
flood
You gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta think
Yeah,
about
this time
flooding.
4 times.
Flooding
it's
is
flooded.
important there.
Yes.
And it raised the bridge up and dropped the bridge
Yeah.
back down. Oh, and then it raised the bridge up again.
And there was one bridge that got washed
Yeah.
away.
Never be
Not
seen
this
again.
year, but.
Yeah, never to be
the
seen
years
again.
ago,
Yeah.
So those are great questions, and I know Michael and I will be asking, okay, that's a,
Yeah.
that example exactly,
Yeah,
what do we do with this? You know?
We
and-
can't get rid of the Willimantic.
Are we out of
River.
compliance? Are we actually out of
We've
compliance?
It won't move.
the inland wetlands agent won't give us the permit to get rid
To
of it.
move it, no, and
Yeah.
of all the dams that are being breached, that's not one, so
That's not gonna happen.
that, yeah, so. I will definitely on our next call find out specifically, because this is a question I've had, because I'm not particularly well versed in ADA, is what standards are requirements
Mhm.
and what standards are suggestions, and because we have of our 25-ish public open space areas, the overwhelming majority are natural preserves. You wouldn't expect a hiking trail to be wheelchair accessible, but some percent we would expect of our public facilities have to be. So what counts and what doesn't is something that we need to make sure we know, such that we can figure out what has to be up to standard.
And I guess another question would be, what use are these, each of these standards is designed for a particular type of parcel and type of use.
Mhm.
What is the layman's language of what that means?
That's true. I mean, we have ostensibly over at River Park, right? We have canoe kayak launch. What standard does a canoe kayak launching park have to meet in order to be considered ADA if the rest of it from getting to the big field is ADA? So these are all interesting questions that we hope to know more about.
Yeah,
know-
Merrill Meadow also supposedly has a canoe kayak launch that is pretty much washed out.
Supposedly, yeah, I've been
Yeah.
looking for it and I've been finding what I think might be the suggestion of where it once was.
No, 2 people got their kayaks out of it yesterday.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's right down the.
It's right at the base of the bridge.
Okay, that was what I thought it was. Good for
And
them.
we were there pretty much every day, and they took 2 kayaks out of, brought them up the stairs. So, yeah, it's still functional and
Yeah.
people know it's there
It works.
and.
Yes, since Joshua's Trust blocked off the real nice one on the other side of the river.
Yeah, well,
I could give you a couple of tidbits from the walk around I did with them that I know, and I don't have any concrete numbers, so questions that we need to dig in with them as we get close to the end here. Is there's a percentage of trails, as Michael was alluding to. If you have 36 miles of trails in towns that are town-owned trails, there's a percentage of that that's supposed to be accessible.
Not gonna happen.
Who's,
So,
according to whom?
It is
No.
not,
so
Federal
what some,
ADA
what some
standards.
communities do
And that influences if you get a.
is they
grant
may
and
create
cars.
a walking path trail
Nice to say,
just
but-
throwing out a park, Southeast Park,
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
So now it may not be a walk through the woods, but it's
Mhm.
considered a trail.
And it's flat
and
enough.
it's flat enough
Yeah.
and you can maintain it fairly easily. Different than, oh my God, we're gonna blaze a ADA trail through the woods,
do we
somewhere.
have to come up to that percentage?
That's my understanding. We will be asking many questions,
see.
but I've heard that more than once now.
Have to for what? That's.
Percentage of existing trails that you have in town, whatever constitutes a trail, has to be ADA compliant.
But.
But what happens if
toward
we
what
don't?
end?
Oh, well, if we
Um,
don't, we're out
don't.
of compliance and I don't know what we're out of compliance.
If we're out of compliance, which, one more thing that we're out of compliance on. And that is not meant bad, but there are so many standards that, every community is out of compliance on something. If we are out of compliance with the standards, it becomes a question of what does it look like to be making progress towards the standards? Does it disqualify us from certain federal funding?
My question is,
Levels.
do they withhold federal
Yeah.
grants if?
Well, there's another solution.
Closed
We
trails?
just eliminate a lot of our
Yeah.
trails and we
Yeah.
save on maintenance.
That
It's
is
okay, that's a
the.
win-win.
That is the alternative, and when we have more of a final on that, we will. That it's on the table. We don't want to do it necessarily, if it's at all avoidable, but it does become a question of we can't get there anywhere else. You change the denominator, right?
Yeah, well,
Um,
as you said before we started the meeting, we're all hills. You're not gonna be able to get your 2% angle on trails in this town for the most part, because this is not a flat town.
Not a particularly flat community.
No.
We
One
put
thing
on our
that could-
slicker hats too and count some of these nice so-called sidewalks that are actually pretty nice trails if you want to walk somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out.
The multi-purpose paths need to be counted into that compliance schedule.
Can we count all Yukon sidewalks?
There we go.
Yeah.
Another
Oh,
example.
some of them are too steep.
Yeah, probably.
Another example of what they have right now is prior to Michael and I sitting down with them and, going through a lot of questions and
Yeah.
including the questions that you have here, of course. Sawmill Brook Preserve, I'll just take that out as an example. They aren't looking for us to make that, they have a price tag if we want to make that fully accessible. I don't know how you would do
All
that.
right.
What?
But they're looking at in phase one, which is what they're saying is you must do this, which we'll have conversations with them about, is the parking lot. Now, it's interesting to me.
Right here. There is no point in having a handicapped accessible parking lot if there is not a handicapped accessible trail.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up as an example.
Yeah, I'm giving that a low priority.
I mean, I'm serious. I mean, they just can't go
Where
around
is
telling
that?
us that all our
There?
parking lots have to
That's
be
going
ADA
out towards the
compliant. It is
bridge.
not
There's
real.
where the bench used to
It's
be.
not real.
Oh, that's not the.
And
okay.
I don't
we
think so.
cannot be
Yeah.
the first
Accessible.
town
The back
with
trail.
this
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Other towns must have had this problem.
So the good thing about doing this plan is that all our parks will be more inclusive of people that in town that need those services. The flip side of that is now that we've identified everything, there is some legal obligation to meet a certain criteria. Not that we can't debate certain things, like, hey, what do you mean by parking lot? Why would we do that?
Yeah.
But it kind of has opened up this, we're trying to do the right thing at our parks, but now we have all these questions, right? Like, what do you mean?
Is Sawmill Brook a park?
So,
Somo Brook
Well, see,
Preserve,
Reserve, yeah.
depends on what they think is
I
a
mean,
park.
in terms
Maybe
of. our-
that's one of the things we need to
Yes.
ask. If we're gonna make our parks accessible, that's different than
Yes.
Yeah.
all of our other lands.
I think my understanding, and Michael jump in here, was anything that there's a park, it's town has access, it's parked, it's town owned. They have, someone has access to that area.
Right.
That's how they look. I don't think they're splitting hairs, preserves
Yeah.
versus parks.
But we have
But that's a
classified
huge important, that is an important distinction.
it.
I don't think in their mind it's not, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
saying it's town access. If there's a parking lot there and people can get out of their cars and go hiking,
But they can't go hiking. That's the point.
if they can't go hiking, why do they need to get their wheelchair out of the car?
And not everybody has a wheelchair, so that's another
Yeah.
part of it. Some people have, there's other mobility issues, so that may,
Yeah.
some may qualify for a day. These are things that we don't, I can admit to you, I don't understand yet until we have
Yeah,
lengthy conversations with. them.
ADA is kind of over my head, in terms of all of the very specific things you have to do to provide accessibility to people.
Are you going to keep it over your head?
No, I'm going to learn it.
Yeah, we'll all become.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna become an
very
ADA expert by the
knowledgeable
end.
Sounds like this is gonna drive a lot of stupidity.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
The goal is to not let it drive stupidity. Wherever possible, we here in the town of Mansfield try to avoid driving stupidity.
Maybe that comes from hiring people from Chicago.
No, but I mean, so there is a very good point of, we have already, as a part of this plan, all of our parks are classified as preserves versus neighborhood parks versus regional parks, right? They have different purposes, and we have defined them as, these have fundamentally different purposes. What the intersection of our understanding of our preserved public land is with requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, we are still working out. Ideally, I would not like to close any of the trails. That is the unfortunate thing, that we would really like to avoid, but we're gonna find out the best ways to ensure that people do have access. Because a lot of this is not that bad, particularly in Merrow Meadow. Crack filling is not, it's little stuff. Crack filling is little stuff. We can do that. But there's other stuff that we can't as easily do. There will not be everywhere that we will be able to deal with a trail being on a tilt.
Right.
As I mentioned before the meeting, Mansfield appears to be mostly hills and wetlands.
Right.
You can't do a whole lot about that. Without blasting, and as I've heard lately, people really don't like it when we go to town blasting.
Definitely not.
Other than these kinds of cracks, Merrow Meadow is in general doing pretty well. Yes.
Can I add one thing, especially since Jay is here? One of the things that we lost the last time we had
Is it the bench?
benches replaced.
It's
that-
on Will's list.
That far
Yay.
bench
The
is
bench is-
so important.
We've ordered it.
Especially-
We have to install it.
Yeah, especially for
Right.
the older people and there's a lot of older people who
Yeah.
use that place.
It would be really interesting to,
But it's not part
not
of the
during,
ADA.
yeah, not
I
during
didn't say it was.
swim season,
I
but
think
some
it's
other
more
time of
important than
year.
ADA.
Because we're there every day, I think that Merrow is our highest used park
Yes.
in the town.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's,
And a real breadth of people use it.
yeah.
It's
yeah,
not just.
People and dogs and
Fishermen.
remote
yeah.
controlled
Yeah,
cars.
I think that's our most used park, so if anybody's concerned about, is it worth putting money into? I think, and I say, except for the swim time in the summer at Bicentennial.
Yeah.
That's the park in town that gets used the most, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
It's our only park with a hardened surface to walk on.
Yeah, and they like to walk along the river, and
But I think
there's
this
a
is,
zillion dogs there.
this brings up the shortfalls of these standards that they're applying. Sue and Tom are saying that far bench is very important for people walking that loop
Yeah.
to have a place to sit and rest. But it doesn't show up as there's no bench at the far end of the loop. There's no bench every X number of feet for
Yeah.
people to rest. So how good are these standards?
Yeah.
The other thing, the good news from today is those
Yeah.
rotting fences
They're putting up
along
the
the
fence around
parking
the
area
parking
are
area.
being replaced. I don't know by whom, but
Right.
hey,
That was something that we talked about, and I'm glad to hear that you're happy that we're replacing it.
absolutely. 'Cause
No,
they-
Hang on to
fall
any good
apart.
ones and try to reuse them here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that,
But I stopped
That's a
to
good
talk to the
example of-
guys and told them how nice it looked.
Oh,
and-
nice.
And they were all smiles and happy
Yeah.
because those are great big things that they're
so
throwing
that
around out
would,
there.
the bench, so the benches have been in since the winter. Will and I
Yeah.
walked down there last week to say, definitely that one out and back. I
Yeah.
ordered two just to have another one.
Yeah,
down there. and
somewhere
so
else along the
We were
river,
looking at
but-
another place we can replace.
Along the
Right,
river,
right
but
next
on
to the
the,
pond, on
Yeah.
one of the parts of the
Yep, that's
platform might be
possible.
good,
yeah,
but that one at the
Yeah.
end.
yeah.
People miss that one. Every time I go
Older
down there,
people
I
really
guess,
get tired and they want to sit
Ask your
down.
ADA people how often bench should be available on trail.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
bet
Yeah.
you they don't have
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
No, but that is actually kind of a really good point, right?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
this is the
for those
deficiency.
practical kind
I'll
of.
try
Yeah.
to shut my mouth for a
Yeah.
change.
yeah,
that's-
the
Oh,
other
never.
two wheelchair slash wheeled vehicle things are both of the things that go out onto the water now. That they used to be, you could just kind of
They used to.
roll right onto it. One of them's like this high now, and the other one's like this
And I
high,
think they make that point.
a little
here.
Yeah.
ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that park is about what I referenced earlier, I've been here about 30 years. I remember coming to work just as that park was, I think,
Oh,
done
yeah.
about 6 months before that or something.
Yep.
So it's, that's a, that park hasn't had much maintenance done.
No,
for
it has,
30 years.
I say, we've
It needs,
been
some,
walking
it
in
needs some
it
attention.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
now. And, most of the problems there are Mother Nature.
Well, yeah.
and over 3 decades of, stuff,
Yeah, I mean, it's flooded more in the past 2 years than it flooded in the previous
There's a reason.
35,
Yeah,
I mean.
there's a reason
well.
for that.
It's always been the biggest challenge down there. Is that.
Yeah.
we're seeing that Mystic Seaport too.
Going back to the ADA, it might be interesting to just sort of look at what categories of stuff there is. There's just, if you don't have a disability, then you don't even know that something is troublesome to somebody else.
Right.
And then I'm thinking back at Berkeley when they made the corners of sidewalks so you could get your wheelchair
Corner
down.
cuts, yep.
That turned out to be great for people with strollers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never
Yeah.
thought about that. And just little things that,
and,
you wouldn't think of, and yet they have a broader
You know.
use than maybe
yeah,
the people they think they're designing for.
and the push button door opening is great for people with strollers too.
Yeah. Yeah, they came to our office and they said our doors were too heavy, which I noticed because I have a really bad shoulder.
Yeah.
But, I didn't think anybody else was looking at that kind of thing.
Well, I'll forward this to Michael on, I'm happy to even send this around. Those that are in the room can get a sneak peek at it. This is a draft. I don't know this is gonna be the final, but it gives you a sense of how they categorize things. Because not everything will fall into a must do. It's sort of that
So
that very idealistic standard if we could all afford to do that.
did I understand you to say if we read this, then that means we accept what they said and that if we then believe it applies to us?
You don't have to believe in anything that we give.
No, but I mean, I think it's a little bit scary, to say
Yeah.
that this
They must
has
spend
now been presented to us and
400,000
therefore it
reserved.
has become real, even though maybe it doesn't
It's a
apply to our
draft, though.
town, but then we get this new definition of our town is not compliant.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I guess for me anyhow, I need more information from them. It was nice to get the list.
Yeah,
It's nice to
yeah.
get- But we
Yeah.
need to understand, how do we interpret this stuff?
Yeah.
And what do we actually have to do in the state of Connecticut or, versus,
Yeah.
I think they think they're attempting to identify that for us. My
Yeah.
understanding is that, and if that's a 1 or 2 on there right now, they're telling us you gotta do this. And when they talk about that, they've talked about a 10-year plan. It's like a reference, if there's progress, good faith progress being made, they realize towns just don't have money sitting around to take care of millions of dollars worth of things. But, so it's sort of that. The frustration might be as we gradually go by year 10, we go circling back to things we
The
did in year 1.
understanding of what a trail is too seems pretty important.
I think one of the things that we can always consider to come out of this is that irrational standards that seem like they would apply to an awful lot of people are one of the few places where we can sometimes make legislative progress. Insofar as these are hardly problems that only affect Mansfield. They will
Oh, yeah.
affect pretty much every hilly town in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Which means that if there are deficiencies in the current standards of the ADA for certain accessibility things that don't make sense, this becomes something easy to drum up support for, create mass action and try to change from the regulatory end. Now, I mean, someone has to be the banner for, standard bearer for it, but in terms of the stuff that doesn't make sense, if we identify it, we contact our state representative who lives in town and we speak to them about bringing it to the state and we try to get those regulations changed. Because
I think we just ought to get the state to pay for handicap accessible parking at Coney Rock.
Exactly.
here.
And install an elevator to the,
Yeah, really.
Oh, no, and get a cog railway.
Yeah,
yes.
Funicula, get the rail car up them.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, and then a tramway over a 50-foot.
Right, exactly, string it across the mountain.
Yeah. that'd be cool.
That's
I'm
not
just
bad.
gonna open my mouth quickly because it
Might be a
came
charge for
to
that.
me, because you did a really good job the last time we said this.
24-hour
Canoers,
snapping for it.
kayakers, once spring starts and the flow is not that great.
Mhm.
There's some more bob ends and
Hooks and other fun
hooks and
things.
other
Yeah,
things that we
But they-
can't get to.
Yeah, the hooks are the
You
real
know.
concern.
Yeah,
But they did a really good job last year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they cleaned
if
out
you could
everything
do that.
down there.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this percentage and because the town may have to do something, I mean, or have a plan to do something. So I'm thinking, okay, we do have parks. We have Sunny Acres.
Yep.
Which unfortunately has some elevation change, but we also have Southeast Park.
Mhm.
We could
Yeah.
have a nice little trail.
Yeah.
Right around the perimeter.
Mount Hope Park is another one that comes to
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like from the parking lot down to the river. That would be really flat and. There would be a goal of being able to go down and sit by the river. I
With
mean,
that bench.
Yeah.
With a bench,
With a
yes,
bench.
at a bench.
Yes,
Maybe two benches.
Yeah.
We gotta find that out.
except the wetlands is wet enough that you'd have to wade or have a pontoon boat.
Galoshes can be
Yeah.
provided.
But that's why sometimes have done.
Yeah.
Parking
Yeah.
lots,
But
not
I'm-
too much
Feasible to
slope.
do some of these other things.
Yeah, but I
Something-
say if.
Something
If
good
we
may
really
come out
needed
of
to get
this.
more.
In that we
handicap
are trying to
accessible
create more
trails, I can think
places
of a
for
few
people
places
who
where we
are
could
in
do that.
wheelchairs.
So we've got two
Walk
conversations
very
going on.
well.
That's
I
right.
mean,
I'm
this
sure
is
it's
sort
not
of
coming over the
nudging us.
speakers, right?
But I just feel this is an opportunity, we should do this as an opportunity, not
Yeah.
just as an imposition. Although I agree, there's a lot of imposition here.
Hmm.
But I'm saying, we really need to think about this. Where could we have trails, more trails on existing town land that would be amenable to this new crushed stone? We could have an experiment at Southeast Field.
Yeah, get them to supply it to us.
And get a federal grant to install it.
Do write grants.
Lions Club is another, I mean, we are looking at, I know one of the visits we had with a consultant was, I know Sunny Acres is a great example. It's a great neighborhood park down there and, does it have to stay the way it is? I know there's a baseball field down there that lightly, with two dugouts that lightly get used. I'm not saying close down the baseball field, but it could be a little bit more than that. We've got the courts down there anyhow, you got the playground, you got the rain gardens
Yeah.
there now. You could put up a nice little,
Yeah,
Yeah,
if it wasn't a designated, it has to be baseball, and it's more of a
right.
combination and South Face Park too.
Yeah.
There are 3 ball fields there, but it's not the only thing that's happening in that area, so.
There is a whole road around it too.
If we do.
Yeah, there actually used to be a
And-
paved, before the new school got put in, there used to be a paved trail around the back of the fields, but it's not there anymore because.
Okay, they tore it up then.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And
kind
and
of
there's
rethinking.
also a sidewalk that has access to Southeast Field.
Yeah, we will
So, I
have to
mean,
think about,
there's-
Yeah.
considering we're actively building multi-use trails and trying to expand our sidewalk network, what counts versus what doesn't
Yes.
for accessibility is a thing.
Yeah.
Depending upon where we come back, I'll probably do a study of where do we have less than 2% grade in Mansfield on
Mhm.
public land based on our, not that many places, as we all know.
No.
But we've got the 2-foot condors off of LiDAR, which means that we do have pretty good information about what the rough slopes are. So we can try to figure out what might work at all.
You might make those curb cuts on, even there by Southeast School, they don't have that.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff we can do here. But
And I know it's one of the, a big goal of the town council. There, in terms of, accessibility and inclusivity, and they, I believe in their goal setting session they had in January, I believe it even spelled out parks in there, so we should probably. Once we get, I think I'm not sure that's finalized yet. I haven't got a copy of it finalized, but I believe that's
oh, that's
in draft form, if not finalized now, to share with you folks at the next meeting. They had like 5 or 6 priorities, I want to say at least, and that was one of them was, inclusivity across the whole community, accessibility to all facilities, not just our parks and,
Yeah.
but the towns having other master plan going on, I'm sure you're aware of right now too. Aside from the northwest corner, we also have the facilities, and that, a big piece of that is not just maintaining and building new, but it's also, heavily focused on ADA and. So.
No, I think this is good. It will force us to start thinking about our public lands as multifunctional, not just a ballpark.
Yeah.
But what other things could we do with that nice flat land?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Jay and I will go away and find out more about these obligations and whether or not we need to have a handicap accessible parking area at a property that cannot be made handicapped accessible in any reasonable way, shape, or form. So.
Okay. Anything else on the master plan? Okay, sustainable Connecticut.
So this is just something I wanted to bring up is that Sustainable CT recertifies us every 3 years. And that we will be going for the higher category because we're overachievers here in Mansfield, the gold certification in 2025. So there are additional activities that we may want to attempt to do. What does anyone involved, because I wasn't here last time we attempted to do this, was anyone involved with sustainable CT goals and trying to achieve certain things last time? Okay. So
We were aware of it, but not much activity.
Yeah.
We did some walks and stuff to support it.
So there's this, the way this program roughly works is that there are a plethora of activities. You document that your town is engaging in them. This gets you points towards your certification. Documentation is a big part. Documenting what you've already done and are continuing to do is a big part. Some of which includes activities that we already discussed in this meeting, such as open space management plans, updating and maintaining those. Stuff such as improving accessibility is also a part, because it's not just natural sustainability, but it's about community equity and matters like that. So what I would like to do is I would like to Ginny and I put together a brief list of activities that the Pnrc may be able to, in some of the things we normally do, assist with. And so as we spend the next couple of months working on stuff like management plans, it'd be a good idea to see if what we've done kind of qualifies for these points. But we're very early on because this is a November 2025 target date, I believe. So we have plenty of time. I just want to bring it up now, so it's on people's radar as you think about stuff. If something cool pops up, and go, I wonder if I could also document that and then get points for it, because it's a nice little feather in our cap for our community.
Can you send us a copy of what you have so far?
Yes.
Okay, because that will keep it in our minds too.
Yeah.
They're pretty friendly about answering questions too, so you can kind of, if you have something you want to know, you can talk to them there, kind of make sure you're going down the right path before you put a lot of time
Yeah,
into something, or you fail to notice some small detail that is going to keep you from getting it.
Yep, the folks that are part of the program are very helpful in explaining both how they grade things and the kinds of things they're looking for. So very, very helpful. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about, you all, is town council presentation. Hypothetically, each committee makes a presentation to the town council on things that it has been doing lately. once a year or once every 2 years. I don't know when the last time PNRC did this, if since COVID.
No,
I'm trying to think the last time that I know that the Open Space Committee did a presentation was in 2010. And I don't think there's been anything since.
Yeah, I
They've
don't-
done something since then, but I can't.
But I don't
recall.
think it was in person. I think it was maybe a report, but we haven't done anything in person since then.
I've showed up and spoken a few times, but I don't think that really counts.
I think your words count, Jim. But if the committee would like to put together the achievements that you have done, because you have done a lot and you continue to do a lot with walking our parks and providing important guidance on these things, that would be great. It's not urgent, but Jennifer and I, think it would be a good idea. We had the Ag Committee present late last year. We'd love to have PNRC and Conservation present over the course of the next year or so, just to remind town council the importance of our
Probably
natural
don't want to do it
resources.
during budget season.
No, the next couple weeks are a little bit busy.
Say
Just
through May is
tiny
not a
bit.
good time.
Yeah, tiny bit busy.
Coventry Road.
But no, we're not talking about the road,
No.
this meeting. So, if people are interested in that, if that intrigues anyone wants to take the lead on that, please, contact me, feel free, I'll dig up whatever resources we may have, in the town drive and more than happy to pass it along.
I'm thinking it might be a good idea to wait until we have figured out what we want to do about ADA. I think
Fair.
that would fit one of their goals for accessibility.
Yeah.
And it would be, a positive program and show that we've taken some initiative.
Okay. That is a
And,
good
and I'm
idea.
sure there are other things, but I'm thinking in terms of timing, it would be good to have something to say about ADA.
Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, Jay, we really gotta get them on the phone then.
Yeah, we actually have to have a phone call.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the fall would be the earliest, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know if the ADA stuff will be ready at that time for us to have anything. I mean, we could talk
Maybe
about
some
it in
some
principle.
smaller things.
Or we
perhaps.
Yeah.
could just talk about it in principle.
Yeah.
Like, here's where we see opportunities
Yeah.
to increase accessibility without actually having committed to a program or found a grant or whatever.
Yeah, and we can probably we can probably pull together something about the state of different trails and the stuff that
And I
Public
think,
Works
I
has been
think the
doing,
fall is
like
probably good,
adding benches and stuff.
because it's gonna be the same council working on the next budget.
Mhm.
So if we give them enough lead time to sweeten them up before the budget process begins, if we have anything we're trying to ask for funding, it's a good timing in the fall.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I don't want to sidetrack too much, but just a reminder, maybe or maybe you're not aware, the town set aside about 750,000 ARPA funds reserved for park enhancements. Some of that is going towards the pickleball court, about 150. A little bit went to Sunny Acres Park. We did some resurfacing down there.
Yeah,
But the remainder, which is around, I think, or low 600s, is reserved for the results of this master plan. A decent chunk could be, done to get us kickstarted with the ADA and improvements,
Okay,
among other things. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that.
it's nice to know there's some
Good.
money there.
Yes.
Yeah,
We can think big.
Not only is there money in ARPA funds, but I think that, there has been, the feeling is that there's more money than we used to have just a few years ago. Not this coming year, but in future years too, to do more and more enhancements in the parks area is a big focus of council, one of their priorities. So I don't think we should be bashful to express
Mhm.
ideas and what we think
Does
we want to do.
maintenance count as enhancement?
Yes.
It's good because,
Yeah.
it's like
A
you
lot of
always
that-
go off on these new projects and then everything
Yeah.
behind you falls apart.
Yeah.
And our consultant who's pretty, down to earth and pretty practical, as remind us of that constantly. It might be nice to build something new with a ribbon cutting, but you gotta maintain what you have, number one, and then look at other stuff, so. That said, there probably will be some kind of a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Something new but also maintaining what we have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she'll put together real numbers, I think, decent numbers for like what it actually will cost to maintain these things. Going forward, so people know what
Yeah.
they need to do to fund the parks.
10 times as much in materials as it used to be.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive. There's nothing cheap.
Yeah. Start thinking about, if all of us start thinking about what might we want to include in a presentation, we can pull our ideas together. And
What time, is that like a 2-minute presentation or a 3-hour presentation?
Somewhere between those,
Okay.
normally, yeah. Council meetings last 3 hours is, on one item on the agenda, it's a long meeting. No, I mean, in general, 20 to 30 minutes of present, explain what you've done, field questions. Have a little bit of a dialogue with the council about, are there specific things that they would like to know more about, things that they want you to do, things you can inform them about. The ag committee presentation took about 30 minutes.
I think one of the things to including is an extract of Vicky's report. Emphasize, what,
Like the overview and the introduction,
well, what I'm.
how-
what
the
I'm
executive
thinking is
summary.
We want to emphasize the change from a list of parcels to areas identified for preservation to preserving based on the goals in the P O C D. To demonstrate that we're more and more attempting to help them meet the goals that they have approved in the P O C D with how we recommend they spend their money.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. The new POCD will be coming, so that will be on everyone's mind. Okay.
Let's do what?
But it's
When?
just.
What?
When is the new P O C D?
So the new POCD must be adopted in the 2025 calendar year, which means that we will be going out to bid for the consultants who will be working with to publish it. And I am beginning to line up all of the maps that we are going to want as raw information, soon, very soon. I'm doing some preliminary map work now. And because we've been working on that Northwest Community Plan, which is kind of a light version of a POCD, we're already a little bit in the swing of things in terms of the kinds of documents we're producing and circulating internally. So.
And you've got the GIS queries figured out.
I am not as good with GIS as I should be, but I have many of them determined at this point. I forgot a lot from when I finished college to when I got here, so.
Don't let your professor know that.
Miranda taught biology, it's fine. So. Yes.
Yeah.
The only item I wanted to ask about remaining on the agenda was parks walks. It's not something that we normally schedule necessarily.
Oh, yeah, we do.
But it's not something that I schedule for you.
Department.
For various purposes related to meetings, but in terms of who's been out to what parks over the course of the past 2 months, how are they looking, and is there anything that we really need to jump on in terms of maintenance other than the bench, which, as you know, is
Yeah.
going?
Yeah.
We already talked about Marrow. the
Yes.
Bicentennial.
Bicentennial, there, again, because of all the rain that we've had, and there's some places on Bicentennial, the main loop around the pond that could use some work. There's
Erosion.
been a little erosion, the area right before the bridge
Wet.
is always wet, but this year it's been wetter.
You could probably fix it a little bit better, though.
Yeah. And yeah, there was some erosion, on one of the steeper slopes on the backside that's got some, a few small areas that might be a little hard to navigate a wheelchair.
Yep.
Where we know when it was first built that the first walk we did, we had a woman in an electric wheelchair. We didn't help her at all. That was one of the deals was, can she do it all the way around without any help? And she did that with,
Yeah.
no, I'm not sure that would be the case right now.
Yeah.
Cause there's a couple of places that are a little more iffy.
Yeah,
The culverts once in a while get sticks and everything in front of them, so it might be something that might need to be checked every
Yeah.
other month or something.
there's some trash racks put in to keep sticks away from the culvert itself.
Yeah,
There's several spots on the hiking trails that are much too wet. Because now we're almost 18 months into abnormally heavy rain. In some spots where there's some drainage work could be done. But, you know,
Well, I think that's something we may want to look at
yeah,
globally as we update master plans is we put in trails based on different precipitation regime than
Yeah.
it seems we're gonna have going forward.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a change needed in South Simpson Wood. Because there's a section of trail that last time we were there was under what, about 8 inches of water?
yeah,
I mean, boardwalking is definitely something, changing water flow
Yeah.
with culverts under trails is something that we're gonna have to look into.
Yeah.
The DEP for the state has been updating its standards for
Mm.
precipitation of what counts as a 100-year storm. And so those numbers are going up based on the changing precipitation patterns. What you have to capture in your first flush of water for all of our stormwater systems. So when it comes to our trail design and maintenance, we're gonna have to account for that as well. It's about 30% higher than it used to be, is what we're anticipating in order to proof for the future.
There's
So,
Mystic Seaport, a spot where we've stored boats for the winter, the small rowing boats and stuff. We've started tying the boats down so they don't drift away.
unlike bridges that do drift away.
you can only tie the bridge so much. It's supposed
Yeah.
to be tied already and at a certain point, you know.
You know, but, you know, that's basically what's happening, or, you know, it's, you know,
Well, we
Yeah, we have-
designed the boardwalk at Merrill Meadow. That was my son's Eagle project. We
Yeah,
designed it to float up and down on some posts,
yeah.
but it floated up past the top of the post and drifted off.
Whoops.
yeah. And the other thing is there's like 30 foot of water to get to the boardwalk,
Yeah,
thanks to the beavers.
Beaver trapping is its own fun challenge. They're very industrious little guys.
If you want to see a good example, drive Dodd Road.
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah.
we're well aware of Doc.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
yeah, before they sort of breached the dam a little bit, it was up over, 195. I
Yeah.
drove down there one morning and kind of went glug, 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 glug.
Wow.
That beaver
Well,
was very busy.
I'll look to the wildlife person. What is there for a beaver to eat in that area?
No, they've taken down all the
Gotta be
trees in that
something,
little
yeah.
triangle.
Yeah.
It's
You
just busy.
Yeah, you know, it used to be you like walk in the Adirondacks or the Catskills and you come across the beaver dam. And then, you know, a year or two later, all the aspen is gone, so the dam is
Yeah.
in disuse and they've moved to another spot.
Right.
Yeah, it's mostly there's not that much aspen type trees here, but they eat the birches.
Yeah.
They eat the
Yeah.
oaks too.
Yeah, I mean, they'll eat whatever they
Eat
can get their
everything.
teeth into, but the birches go first
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
From a wildlife standpoint, it's great news. The beavers are doing very well. From a coexistence with human structures standpoint, the beavers doing as well as they are could be going better for our maintenance budgets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I have I have on the list, we have the loop trail at Bicentennial, there's a couple of places, Simpson Wood, there's places where it's just deep and soggy. Merrow is right by the river and we are aware of that. Is there anywhere else in particular I should sit down
Has
with Will?
anybody been to Mount Hope Park lately?
It's kind of flooded between.
Yeah.
Imagine, yeah.
That trail is underwater
Yeah.
most of the time now,
Yeah.
so,
That's so weird.
yeah.
And the last trip I was there, the section from the parking lot to get over to Simpson Wood,
It's kind of wet.
yeah,
Like you thought maybe you should walk on the road instead.
yeah.
You know, Mount Hope Park, we lost those footbridges.
Yeah.
a couple
Yeah.
years Back, right? And then I don't know where that observation deck went.
Yeah, the last time I saw it, it was kind of in
down
the
on the
middle.
old guys.
Yeah, it was that,
Yeah.
it was down at the far end, and then it was in the middle for a while, so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
been
that
just kind of
footbridge
floating
was-
all over the place.
Was Ken's son's Eagle Scout.
Yeah,
The boardwalk.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't understand the water at Mount Hope because maybe I'm just missing the point somewhere, but I don't see how, there's really no way you can make that trail connect where it's flooded anymore.
The water is higher now because of the beaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the beaver deceiver is no longer deceiving him.
That's what it
No,
is.
He
he's
is
took
no
care of
longer
that.
being deceived by it.
I have not been, but I think one of the things we need to look at is our steeper trails. I've got places where on my property, I've had some, not so much erosion, but all of the leaf litter has washed off. And what was just a casual footpath used by my neighbor a couple of days a week. And I'm concerned, like, for instance, the trail that goes up from the parking lot up towards Cooney Rock across that's a pretty steep trail. And I wonder whether we're gonna need to start installing erosion bars in places we didn't think we needed them.
Oh, that's
Where did we?
that's another real bad erosion, the, on 50-foot, the
Oh, yeah.
forest
Oh,
road that
yes,
goes
yeah.
down. Cause we do that for, October, that's the same thing where we used to walk down the forest road and it's just, the forest road is like 3 feet lower than it used to be and that all it is big rocks, so
Okay,
we were going up through the
okay.
woods instead.
On that one, and thank you for reminding me, I've got to follow up with John Hankins.
Yeah.
Okay.
He, when in an email exchange, he had said he had found the route, but was waiting for the town approval to get to it. Basically, he tossed the ball back into my court.
The town is
But this
incapable
one-
of approving people of using chainsaws and other power tools. If we know about it, we can't approve it.
Well, this was just a rerouting.
Right.
I'm aware of that, but, that's the Park and Forest Association trail across town land. So I
Yeah.
said about this time, we get together and, see what,
Yeah,
look at that route and.
Did he flag it?
It was, this was before everything stopped, so,
I'll probably be seeing John this Saturday because the CLCC conference is this Saturday. So if I see him there, I'll talk to him about
yeah,
it.
there's usually so much going on at that.
Yeah, I normally get about 3 minutes with the people there. So that's,
Yeah,
Wasn't that boardwalk rotting away?
it
'Cause
was
I worried
under,
about her crossing.
yeah, I don't know, I think I
It's a
just call it a
board- it's
bridge.
boardwalk,
Bridge
bridge,
boardwalk.
whatever you want.
That has never been underwater before. It was underwater
Yeah.
and it looked like it probably had been underwater most of the summer.
whereabouts?
At the bottom of the hill. Just before you get to the
Which-
power line.
which
Yeah.
park are we in?
We're still at
it
50
went up 50 foot, yeah,
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 And it was
that was
kind
a
of-
trick to get to and get off.
yeah,
It
and it was, the, when you walked on it, the wood was kind of like spongy.
Is that town or is that
Not a-
JT?
No, it's town.
Yeah, it was not a wood texture.
Yeah, it's,
It was
yeah,
pretty
it's,
50 foot, not Wolf Rock.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's town land with a park and forest trail on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, so just a couple of maintenance things. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Is it, are we
Okay.
gonna discuss that dreadful bridge downstream of Barrow's Pond?
Oh, yeah,
Downstream of
of
Barrows.
Schoolhouse
Pond
Brook
is-
Park, where the trail goes below the beaver dam. The bridge has got angles like this that are
Ooh.
much too steep.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, when it's icy and you have osteoporosis, it's pretty scary.
Well, even if it's just wet, it's made with Trex. So when it's wet, it's slippery.
Someone did
even
put
when
some
it's-
crossbars in it.
On
more
one
recently,
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On
but-
one side,
Yeah.
not on both sides.
But
Not
the
as scary
bridge,
as it
but
was,
the
but-
bridge really should be
It
re-engineered.
should be
It's not right.
completely-
That
Yeah,
was
it should
one-
be a 2% slope.
Yeah, that was
Exactly.
one of the early Eagle
Might as
Scout
well with the
projects,
camera.
if I remember correctly.
That's before I was involved with the troop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
People worried about how we're gonna spend $600,000.
Yeah, not hard.
We got it right here. 4 bridges, a couple of observations, engineering of trails. We can spend $600,000. We got it.
Before we leave
By new flocking.
park
people.
walks, we've got a couple of things coming up. We've got a, bicentennial hike,
Yep.
a Mother's Day hike at Bicentennial Pond. We've got a Trails Day hike at Merrow where we always do a kid level one at Merrow. So I have life-sized laminated pictures of birds. So trying to take little kids out to show them birds, the birds just don't cooperate. So we're going to thumbtack them on the trees. So we will be looking at birds that are not going to fly away. And I have a whole bunch of little kid bird guides.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a not escaping bird walk at Merrow Meadow for Trails Day. And then I just talked to our new friend Travis to do a pollinator walk in August
Yeah,
at
that's right.
Merrow to look at all the
Oh,
cute
that'll be
bees.
pretty.
It's a cute bee walk. I've become quite enamored with certain bees.
And we will be making sure that as we mow, we do not mow back too far from the
Yes.
trail for
3 feet.
the pathway, such that it is easy to see the pollinators come the autumn.
Yes, that would be
Sure.
absolutely lovely
We're gonna make
because
sure.
we
do that this
actually-
year.
we actually ran into a guy that. We're actually 2 different guys that do that 1/3 of a mile with a wheeled walker. That and one of the guys actually said to us, I used to be able to do this and look at the plants, but I can't look at the plants anymore because they're 12 feet away
Yeah.
and I can't leave the paved walkway with the walker, so.
Right,
So we need a mole not past the edge of the sidewalk for ADA.
Yeah, well, about 3 feet, the plants flop over enough so
Yeah.
you can
Right.
see them if it's
You
like
need-
3 or 4
Yeah.
You
feet,
need to
but
do something.
it got to be like 15 feet last summer.
Yeah, but then the counterpoint is you really want the vegetation at least 6 feet away so the ticks don't jump on you.
Well, don't worry about so much about that,
Yeah.
because we're taking pictures this far away from
Yeah,
things, so
No,
if the ticks really want to jump, they
Yeah,
can probably
yeah.
do it.
The one thing I did notice in that list of things was, I think it was Sawmill Brook with the leader TBD. Have we filled in that blank?
What was that one?
Well, hike.
The hike. I think it was Sawmill Brook. You had one, there was one listed in the brochure that. It was
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I
And,
don't,
and that has happened before.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, well, if you don't have someone to lead the walk, why is it here in the brochure?
Oh, okay, I didn't hear what you were, no, I haven't.
I'll talk to Travis.
Who is Travis?
Travis is the new aquatics and outdoor events coordinator.
Yeah.
So he is the person who is actually making all of the events happen and making sure that they execute, which is a bit more in his wheelhouse than mine, so I think it is better that he's
Yeah,
running
he-
that.
He and I,
Well, you've only
as soon
got
as
3
he
jobs,
came,
so
he.
what? Take on
Yeah,
another
stuck
one.
with me, and I've had a meeting with him, and he's a real sweetie pie, so he, you know, the first thing he did when the due date came up was get in touch with me. What can we do? What do you want to do at the parks? So he's
Yeah.
really on top of it and very excited about it.
And that's great. It takes it off Michael's plate.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just have all of the other stuff.
yeah.
But
Michael,
anyway, I don't
Hi, Michael.
understand.
Yes,
this,
hello.
Miranda.
oh, I was
this
just gonna,
maybe to this-
I had a question just because several years ago, before Jen was promoted and you came on board, I had started to discuss with her the possibility of doing some kind of a short little walk or demonstration where I put out camera traps somewhere and showed people how to use camera traps. But to make that effective, one of the things that I was talking to her about was having one camera trap that was out there and set up so we could actually show them what was found on it. And I think she was investigating whether or not there would be any permission problems or what sites would be best, or, you know, for that kind of thing. If I was going to do it in the future, it's the kind of thing that is actually almost better done sometimes in fall because the vegetation's down, you get more stuff. But just thinking ahead in advance of stuff coming up later on, I would like to reopen that discussion.
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be great. I
idea.
will,
Yeah.
That sounds neat.
I'll chat with Jennifer and then probably the town attorney on what is allowed. But yeah, I'm gonna do what I do with everyone who wants to do something 6 months from now, and I'm gonna send you a calendar invite for 4 months from now. Such that in 4 months, we actually talk about it.
All right,
Um,
that sounds good.
Perfect. And I'll figure out all the legal stuff ahead of time to make sure it happens.
Yep, because I haven't thought ahead of it about it any more than that, because it was just, it kind of got lost when all the switching around started happening.
Yeah.
I would imagine if you're not focusing the camera on the hiking trail, there are much less issues with you're taking pictures of people who
Yes.
don't want to be taking
Yeah.
pictures of.
There's that, there's trying to sign it. There's also, if people do find it though, then sometimes they get concerned that they're being watched. So, you know, coming up with appropriate signage around it. Sometimes they do get stolen or vandalized, either because people are trying to avoid having their photo taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Or
would
because they
put it
just
on
want the
hiking
camera. I had one
trail.
stolen off campus just this last week, so, you know.
I could offer my back 40 acres, which really has only 1 or 2 people walking on it, but plenty of deer trail.
Yeah, so something like that is great. I mean, any place that's actually kind of open where we know that the wildlife, you want to put it on trails for sure, so.
I've got a
big grant.
I've got a full range of habitat on my property, so
Mhm.
maybe we can make a date to have you come over and walk you through it and see where you might want to put a camera.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. Ideally, so what I do is I'd have one out there for about a month in advance of it and then schedule people to go out, show them how to set one up and things like that. And also have a computer where we can actually scroll through whatever photos we might have gotten there on site.
Yeah, that property is quite enjoyable to walk. Take them up on it.
Look at it on their computer in real time, what the camera was seeing.
Mhm.
There's I forget her, I don't know her latest married name. But Bette Zimmerman up in Woodstock had several cameras out, and she did actually a Zoom presentation
Mhm.
for some group up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun what you can get on it, even just on campus and things. We've gotten bobcats and everything just right there, closer than you would think, so.
Yeah,
That's cool. Very
yeah,
exciting.
our backyard finds things.
Don't forget that Aaron Cooperbitz is doing one for the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History. I think it's in April or May, up in the towards the cemetery. You know where I mean.
Oh, yeah, no,
Maybe talk to Aaron too.
Yep. She has her trees that she has marked back there.
Great, lots of walks,
Yeah.
past and present.
Oh, we the Narrow Meadow pollinator one last summer was so much fun because we had three people from California.
Oh, yeah.
And they had just,
Totally different.
they had just arrived in Connecticut, so they knew nothing.
Hmm.
So it took us 3.5 hours to go around the third of a mile loop. Because they were asking about every single thing.
Enthusiasm.
Okay. Anything else under the, and it's my understanding we don't have an executive session.
None,
No.
Good.
nothing critical.
Okay, and we talked about 9 already,
Yep.
Yeah.
so that brings us to item 10.
I move that we adjourn.
I'd like,
Anybody opposed?
What enthusiasm.
I'll remind Michael to stop recording.
Bye, guys.